The Oklahoma Sooners are winning the transfer portal before the transfer portal even opens.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners, and thank you for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200, $250 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Visit FanDuel.com today. He's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. The Oklahoma Sooners picked up two big portal additions on Tuesday evening as the Sooners signed offensive lineman Jake Maikkula and running back Jaydn.
Can't believe it, John. Portal just opened. And we already had them before the portal officially actually opened. And that's a great way to start off portal season, is picking up two of the biggest names in the portal. I mean, arguably everybody's calling Jaydn the best running back that has entered the portal, or at least the most dynamic one. And everybody's excited about his potential because of what he showed his first 2 years in college. As a freshman, he rushed for over 800 yards. As a sophomore, he put up 1,300 yards. Technically, he's like 3 yards under 900 yards rushing as a true freshman. 1,300 yards as a sophomore with 12 touchdowns. Of course, we know last season he wasn't as dynamic. He was dealing with an ankle injury after the first game, but he showed a lot of resilience and a lot of fight. And so because of that, the Sooners now pick themselves up a big-time playmaking back. And the best part to me, I mean, as much as I would love to have him all 4 years, he's only got 1 year left. So that means that your younger running backs are not being cannibalized by bringing him in. He just adds an additional element that you can use in the SEC, and then you can continue to develop and grow your young backs to prepare to go out there and run.
Yeah, he is a dynamic back. If you've seen any of the highlights on this guy, Jaydn, the dude is a playmaker. He's going to create big plays. He can create big plays after contact. He can win before contact. He's going to get downhill in a hurry. He's got great lateral agility. He's got the speed to break away from defenses, and he's got really good contact balance. And I think that's one of the more underrated abilities for a running back, a guy that takes on contact and is able to keep his feet and continue to move forward. And he does a great job of that. And he's really, really fun to watch. And I think he's going to make Oklahoma's offense even better. A lot of people are calling him the top running back in the transfer portal, and I can see it. He's got the production. You look at his yards from scrimmage, 3,333 total yards from scrimmage in 3 years at Cal, 30 total touchdowns in 3 years at Cal. That's a lot of production. As much as I like what Oklahoma's got in the running back room, they don't have that.
Yeah.
And that was one of those things that was missing. And now you've got a dude that you can hand the ball to 15, 20 times a game. You can get him 15 to 20 touches a game, and you can feel very comfortable doing so. This was what Oklahoma needed. You had questions. Do you like who you have in the running back room? Yes. But you got questions. Nobody has solidified themselves as running back one for the last several years. It's been since Eric Gray was leading the Oklahoma Sooners rushing attack back in 2022 that you felt like you had a legitimate RB1 at running back. You've got that guy now.
Yeah, and that's just crazy to say, 3,333 yards.
I guess Eric Gray was 2023. Sorry, excuse me.
Yeah, no. Gray was 2022. You were correct.
Okay.
2023 was was Barnes and Sawchuk. And Sawchuk rushed for 500 yards, over 500 yards. He had the 5 games straight of 100 yards rushing. So yeah, you're spot on with that. That's the last time you had a 1,000-yard rusher too. So for the Sooners, getting someone that has put up over 1,000 yards in a season and has an idea what it looks like to get to that point, that's what you need. You need that experience as well going into this year. But man, imagine the dynamicness of the backfield with John Mateer and Jaydn together. Oh gosh, that's basically what a lot of the talking heads have been talking about. Has been, what's it going to look like with those two together? Mm-hmm. That's crazy. And unfortunately, we just put the big stake into the heart of the former Pac-12, RIP, my people over there, as we just snatched up a Cal player. And then you got to talk about this Stanford guy that we just pulled up with Jake Maikkula. And then we are quarterbacks from Washington State. My goodness, it's pray for those people over there, John. I don't know how they're doing right now.
Sorry to the old Pac-12. Not sorry though, because Oklahoma's going to get
We
better.
appreciate you.
I think you make a really great point there about Oklahoma with John Mateer and Jaydn in the backfield. The read option, the zone read, whatever you want to call it, is going to be a significant part of the offense because you know that John Mateer is going to be a dynamic runner. But this just threatens and stresses defense so much more. The play action RPO game just stresses defenses so much more. When you have a running back with Jaydn Ott's ability in the backfield, teams have to legitimately account for what Oklahoma wants to do at the mesh point. They cannot go to sleep on that. They cannot, misread that. Otherwise, it's going to be a big play going against you. So this just, even before they step foot on the football field, is going to have opposing defensive coordinators awake. They're going to have some sleepless nights making sure that their guys are defending that appropriately. So this is a huge addition, and it shows that Jim Nagy, Brent Venables, they mean business right now in the spring portal window. You add Jake Maikkula. We've talked about Maikkula at multiple times on this show, but you get two things here. You get competitive depth, somebody who's going to push Troy Everett at center, who's going to push Eddie Pierre-Louis and Fabechi Wiwu at guard, and he's going to provide a veteran insurance a little bit on the interior offensive line. If he's not able to start this year, that's not really going to be any skin off of Oklahoma's back. You feel pretty solid with what you've got up front, but you've got him for 2026 as well. And hey, if he were to redshirt this year, who knows? You might even have him for a year beyond that. So this is a big pickup for Oklahoma too, because you needed to find some veteran experience behind Troy Everett at the least. That's the bare minimum of what you're getting with Jake Maikkula. But you could also be getting a guy that pushes for a starting job at center or at guard, depending on what happens. And we saw what happened in 2024 when you didn't have good enough depth along the offensive line. Now, the offensive line got injured beyond just the two deep, and that exposed Oklahoma's offense, but you had to solidify your center position with some depth.
Yeah, you got to have that mainly because, we dealt with this last year. We talked about this on the last show, how we've gone through the cycles of centers. We had 4 centers in 3 games to start the season last year, and that's honestly helped lead you to a lot of disaster because you didn't have continuity at that position. But you also saw that the offensive line got a lot better as the season progressed. They got a little bit better here, a little bit better there. Then the injury would hit. It would derail them for a bit, and then it would get better, which is what's kind of critical for Oklahoma, is having enough depth, and all you got to do is stay healthy in the fall camp, and you should be good to go. So in that situation, I know that this is probably popping up in the comments right now, asking the question, how can you sign players in the transfer portal if the transfer portal hasn't even opened yet? Well, this is 2 major exceptions right now. First and foremost, Jaydn Ott is a grad transfer, so he can sign whenever he wants at this point, once he decided to say he was going into the portal, and that's why it was very easy for Oklahoma to pick him up so quickly. Jake Maikula's coach got fired by their GM, Andrew Luck, a month ago? And so because of that, he could enter the portal within 5 days of that happening. And now he had the opportunity to go and find a place right after that. But if I'm correct, he'll graduate as well. And he'll be a grad transfer too. So in other words, that still doesn't fully matter. But because of that lined up perfectly where Oklahoma was able to pick up these players right before the transfer portal actually opened, which it just hit about midnight. And so you're about to see the influx of players jumping in that bad boy over the next few hours. It's going to be blowing up, and you'll see some Sooners there too on top of it. But Oklahoma has definitely already, to me, won the portal with that pickup.
Yeah, as we're recording early Wednesday morning, we have one other portal addition to Devon Mitchell and Michael Patterson McDonald. We'll discuss that coming up next. But imagine there are going to be several more portal entries for Oklahoma over the next few days. We'll discuss those as they happen here on Locked On Sooners. But we're going to talk about that next portal entry, I should say, in Sam Franklin coming up next, and what it means for Oklahoma Sooners here on Locked On Sooners.
The NBA playoffs are almost here, and FanDuel gives new customers an incredible way to get into the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you get $250 in bonus bets if you win. So for me, I love to jump into the games on FanDuel for my Oklahoma City Thunder. Roughly a little late. I get there right when the ball tips off. But the good thing is I can combine a lot of my live prop bets into a same day parlay for a chance to win big. So, I can fiddle around with some cool stuff and make some magic happen. So make sure you don't miss out on this as the NBA playoffs kick off. Head to fanduel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today.
Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on all podcast platforms, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. In the third segment, we're going to talk Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter having their numbers retired by Colorado and how that would work at Oklahoma. Just an interesting, fun discussion. But Sam Franklin enters the transfer portal, Jay. It's not too terribly surprising. He came to Oklahoma last year as a veteran option in the running back room, but never really seemed to get a lot of run at running back. He was a primary kick returner for the Sooners, but now with the Jaydn addition in particular, Sam Franklin kind of becomes a casualty of roster limitations.
Yeah, it's a combination of that and just now play. That depth chart is getting a little bit thicker. Think about it this way. Xavier Robinson has emerged as a big-time player. Taylor Tatum is still there, but I think Xavier Robinson has put himself in front of Taylor Tatum today. Gavin Sawchuk has gotten stronger, and it looks like he's about ready to emerge here in the SEC after a very injury-plagued last year. Javonte Barnes is still hurt, but at the same time, he showed as your hardest-working runner on the team. So he put in the most effort, and I think he'll be able to get back on the field a little bit more. And then you add Jaydn and then Torrey Blaylock on top of that, a true freshman who we've been hearing very good words about him as a dynamic playmaking running back. And he's also already sizey at like 6 foot, 200 pounds. So your room's getting a little thick. And Sam Franklin was brought in as a veteran presence to kind of help because the running back room was young. It was mainly X-Rob. It was, Taylor Tatum and Andy Bass, who is just coming off injury. And, with Barnes and Sawchuk dealing with injuries, you kind of needed one more back just to kind of help solidify that room. And hopefully he was going to be able to put up the numbers he did at Tennessee Martin. And it just never worked out for him, unfortunately. It drop passes, some fumbles. The mistakes were a little too glaring for him in that situation, but I think he still has the opportunity to be something. And I think once he hits the portal, a team's going to pick him up. He'll probably end up at he'll potentially end up at a P4 or G5 school. And I think he'll do a really good job somewhere else. It just did not work out here. It'll be outside of SEC because of it being the spring window, but he deserves the opportunity to go out and play and have an opportunity to do something. And I think he'll be able to do it.
Yeah, he certainly has the ability to be productive. You don't do what you did at Tennessee Martin without having some kind of ability. It's just he wasn't able to get on the field consistently for Oklahoma. When he was on the field, he made some good things happen. He ran hard, he ran quick. So, and he can catch the ball out of the backfield. So an intriguing thing. I think one thing you mentioned in the first segment that I want to bring back up is the addition of Jaydn. It doesn't do anything to your young running backs. It doesn't change the situation for Xavier Robinson, for Torrey Blaylock, for Taylor Tatum. Now, it wouldn't be surprising if you saw one of those guys enter the portal just because, hey, this is the new era of college football. You're going to see transition. You're going to see guys into the portal that were blue chip prospects high on your radar that you had big plans for. That's just the reality of the situation. But you still feel really good about Xavier Robinson and Torrey Blaylock being here, Taylor Tatum. We'll see what happens there. You're seeing some buzz that could go a different direction with Tatum, but with Jaydn, with only 1 year of eligibility left, you can continue to build your running back room and not have to worry about, oh man, these guys are going to get discouraged sitting behind a veteran, sitting behind a guy who's probably going to get a large majority of the carries, or sitting behind, another couple veterans in Javonte Barnes and Gavin Sawchuk who are going to eat up all those carries. You can just continue to work and develop and get better, and then look to, this year getting some run, but then 2026 being the year that you actually get to lead the running back room.
Yeah, big key thing is we need more veterans out there. Like you said, Sam Franklin's putting up some numbers before in his career, and he should be able to still do something similar somewhere else. And I believe he will. Now for Oklahoma, the biggest thing is, John, Are we going to see some more casualties? I think we're going to see probably one more player hit the portal. I'm not sure who that could be, possibly two, because that room now, Jim Nagy has shown us that he means business. This is no longer a game. He's not playing, play at your mama, don't play with him, because he is over here really making some adjustments in this locker room and in this roster that we have been hoping for. All of us have wanted our team to focus on getting some of the best players possible, and it looks like that's what Nagy's doing. And this is honestly showing you his greatness, and we'll dive even deeper into Nagy as to why this was such a freaking genius hire, because he was able to identify this player quickly with Jaydn. And it's funny because, we talked about this yesterday, but he tweeted about him for the Senior Bowl last year,
back in
before
July.
he even get this job. Yeah. He already knew.
He knew.
He saw how dynamic he is. And now his scouting prowess is going to be able to do the same thing for some other positions. So I know that the losing Franklin, you losing depth is typically is always looked at as a bad thing in my personal opinion. Not like horrible though. I don't think that this hinders us in any way. But I know that we'll see, like I said, a couple more that'll enter the portal also, and we'll get to start, next year pretty fresh. And honestly, it's kind of refreshing and exciting to see that.
Well, and they're not done yet either. They're going to continue to attack the portal. Pete Nakos of On3 mentioned that tight end is probably going to be up next for Oklahoma as far as portal pursuits. And we've heard some really positive things out of the Oklahoma Sooners tight end room. At the same time, it was kind of starting off at a low place, right? It's probably been years since Oklahoma's tight end position was considered with such little confidence as maybe Oklahoma's tight end position was going into spring ball. Now, guys like Will Huggins and Carson Kent and Jaron Kanek have created a little bit of buzz, but Oklahoma can still afford to upgrade at that position, right?
Yep. They can. They can afford to. And I mean, there's a few spots that we talked about that needs to have some additional pieces. It's funny because even Max Olson over there that covers college football in the transfer portal for ESPN has said the same thing. He said he tweeted out bold prediction: Oklahoma's going to score more than 24 points per game this year, and with us landing 2 priority players, they're definitely not done. So it sounds like everybody has an idea that Oklahoma is going to be doing a lot more stuff. And that, to me, puts a big time smile on my face.
Yeah, and they can and will add several more players on the offensive side of the ball. It wouldn't surprise me to see them add 1 or 2 on defense. I feel like the defensive side is a little bit more solidified at the defensive line spots, linebacker, safety, but there are some intriguing edge prospects that are in the portal now. There are some intriguing linebackers and safeties as well. So it wouldn't surprise me to see them continue to try and bolster those groups, even though they do have good talent and they have good depth. They're not going to sleep on anybody. But cornerback is probably the spot where we feel like Oklahoma can really look to add a veteran presence to go with all those young guys. But Oklahoma's going to be aggressive. Jim Nagy said it last week. Brent Venables echoed it after the Crimson Combine. They're looking to add everywhere. Kicker is a place that probably needs a infusion of talent. And because we didn't really get to see that in the spring game, and it's one of those positions that you don't really talk much about, but everything that you're hearing from the insiders, from people that were at practice, from people at the Crimson Combine, is kicker is a problem. So I would not expect them to go into fall camp with the kicking situation where it's at right now.
Yeah, that's one position that we don't talk a lot about in special teams, and that room is very young. And unfortunately, it does not, like I say, it doesn't look like it's really shaping up to be what we need to go into the year. But we'll see. I'll put it this way. I mean, Crimson Combine, it did not look that great, while at the same time, I don't know what that looks like in actual game situation. We have a tendency of sometimes populating a decent kick game at the right time. But yeah, we're definitely going to have to go get another kicker just to keep the competition going in that room. And let's hopefully one of those young legs show up. But John, yeah, I don't think I'm as worried about the special teams as I was years before, because I know that there's some legs. It's just now getting them fine tuned. Last year before last, I was really we were just missing field goals we shouldn't have missed. And in this situation, I think that hopefully the offense can do enough and the defense can do enough to where we're not relying on the foot too much.
Yeah, never kick. Hashtag never kick, and you don't have to worry about it. Just go score touchdowns, and you're fine. So don't settle for field goals. Go score touchdowns. Colorado is retiring some numbers for Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter after they just left Boulder. But that brings us to the question, which Oklahoma Sooners should have their numbers retired if Oklahoma were going to retire numbers? And I also have an interesting question for Jay. Is there an Oklahoma Sooner player that would have deserved to have their number retired immediately after leaving the program? We'll discuss all that coming up next here on Locked On Sooners. Thanks again for making Locked On Sooners your first listen every single day. Shout out to all the everydayers out there tuning in and subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Jay Smith got to ask this question. What did you think of the announcement that Colorado was going to retire Travis Hunter and Shedeur Sanders numbers at their spring game?
I had a lot of thoughts on this, and I'm going to say this in the nicest way I possibly can. Let people have fun doing things that they like to do. We've got to remember something. Colorado has been dealing with irrelevance for like 30 years. And, they've had moments of shining and gleam here and there, but they ain't done much. And now that Prime showed up to Colorado, you get Coach Prime, and then he brings Shedeur, he brings Travis, and they come in and they change that entire environment's culture and feel and relevance in 2 years of being there. I get why the school is going to retire their number. This is something they need. They need to keep sparks out there and they need to keep excitement out there. And they had two really dynamic players. I mean, if I'm correct, Shedeur Sanders is like their career leader in touchdowns and yards already. And he's only been there for a couple of years. Travis Hunter winning the Heisman and the Biletnikoff Award and the defense best player. Name me somebody else that's played that has done that. I mean, Rashad Salam was their Heisman Trophy winner. Totally get it. But he was a running back, right? And we saw Salam go, play, and I thought he was excellent. He was one player I thoroughly enjoyed when he won the Heisman. But you got to keep this in mind. What has Colorado had? And also at the same time, remember this is another thing to keep in consideration. They don't have the rich history that Oklahoma has. Oklahoma has way too many good players. We are a blue blood. So no, this would not be something that we would potentially do or really apply to us because we're that darn good of a program. Colorado wasn't built like us. And since Colorado's not built like us, they're not built like a lot of programs, this is something for them to basically say, Prime, thank you for coming here. And thank you for putting us back on the national stage as a constant conversation piece. Colorado's always talked about their brand value has skyrocketed because of Deion. And if he can continue to do this, he shows that he can continue to keep them up there winning 8, 9, 10 games on a consistent basis. He may never leave Colorado. I don't think another program is going to be able to pull him away because the Buffs at some point is going to increase their stadium. They're going to make changes to all their facilities. They've got this influx of money because people want to donate now. They brought in so much revenue into just the ecosystem of Boulder, Colorado. I get why they're doing it. This is a thank you to Prime and him coming there. And then, showing that the prospective, recruits and transfers that they're going to celebrate you for coming there and doing good things. I don't see a problem with it personally.
Yeah, and I don't listen. I think you're right. Let people have fun and let people do what they want to do. I think what stands out is guys like Cordell Stewart, who had Colorado very much in the national consciousness of college football with his play. Slash. Everybody talked about Slash because he could do everything, right? He was one of the first multi-tool players that you saw playing the quarterback position so well, playing wide receiver really, really well as well. And, there's a Northeastern State's head coach here in Tahlequah. He's a former Colorado Buffalo from back in the 90s, was drafted, went to the NFL, played a few years. But he talked about how usually there's a cooling off period for some of this. And I get it. There's a ton of buzz around Travis Hunter right now and Shedeur Sanders as they're about to be, top 15 picks in the NFL draft. But generally, you kind of wait a minute and let that kind of materialize, let it marinate a little, and then see. Travis Hunter makes a lot of sense. The dude accomplished everything that you want to accomplish in college football as a wide receiver and a cornerback. You cannot argue with the accolades. Shedeur Sanders was really, really good. And yet, to me, it seems like his career didn't finish as highly thought of because there were no team accolades. Now, get it. It's an individual accomplishment. Football is a team sport. So I'm not going to have too big an issue with it. But that brings me to my next question, Jay. Who's the first person you would think of if Oklahoma decided to retire a football number?
That to me is this is where the challenge comes in. The list is long. You could go early years. I mean, you can go to, first off, you can look at one of your 7 Heisman Trophy winners. So that makes it easy to even start there. You can look at, there's just so many players that you can choose from. I mean, some people will go with Holloway, some will go with Owens, some would go with Sims, Vessels. The list is a little too long. But if I was to go ahead and try to pick somebody, I'd probably go early 2000s. Maybe like the dynamicness of an Adrian Peterson, maybe a record setter like Sam Bradford, who kind of ushered in a new era of college football with his with that offense and that spread and threw 50 touchdowns in a season, doing something that's just ridiculous. That would probably be who I would consider. I know that Oklahoma, of course, Oklahoma doesn't retire numbers because we have way too many players we would have to retire numbers for. But I'd probably go Bradford or Adrian. I know a lot of people in the comments will be like, "What, you wouldn't pick one of the older players?" I know. I like to look at the players that I watched play. If I was to go ahead and pick somebody, like I actually saw with my eyes, and just Peterson as a true freshman was just too stupid and absurd. You rushed for almost 2,000 yards as a true freshman, and you didn't even start the first game of the year. You just played in it, the first couple of games. So it's hard to choose. I just say it's very hard to choose, but I'd probably go with like Peterson or Sam Bradford, just because what Sam Bradford overcame to get that starting quarterback position, and then what he finished doing, and then Adrian's just 1 year of just dominance as a true freshman.
Yeah, if you're looking at the most productive player of the 21st century, Leroy or Sam Bradford. If you're looking at maybe the most talented player of the 21st century, Adrian Peterson. If you want to go before all that, Leroy Selman is the name that pops up most often when you talk about the greatest Oklahoma Sooners of all time. You talk about the most important, the most dynamic. I mean, that dude stands head and shoulders above probably everybody else. I mean, he was a college football Hall of Famer. He's an NFL Hall of Famer. He was a first overall draft pick. He led Oklahoma during those Switzer years on the defensive side of the ball. But you also can't discount what his brothers, Lucius and Dewey, did as well. They were great players in their own right. I mean, those were just great teams. And that's where you run out of options in retiring numbers, because if you start listing every single person, you will run out of numbers. And you'll have to start putting triple digits on people's back to make it work. But it's just a fun and interesting conversation. I think if you were looking at a player that you would want to retire like immediately after because of different accolades, to me, Leroy would be one of those guys. You're talking, 21st century, maybe somebody from that 2000 national title team. Josh Heupel. I mean, he helped kind of usher in the air raid offense into everybody's, frontal cortex and the front of mind, like bringing that to popularity because he did it at Oklahoma. So I don't know. There's a lot of really fun and fascinating names out there.
To add to that list too, I mean, one that probably some people in the comments are going to say, I can't believe you didn't say this guy who's considered the best quarterback since 2000, the best quarterback in the 21st century in college football. I know, Baker Mayfield. I totally get you there. I would look at it as who did something that really changed Oklahoma the way that Shedeur and Travis Hunter, especially Travis Hunter, did coming to Colorado. Who changed it? And that's where you saw the shift in the gameplay. And I think that that's where Sam comes into play. He was, like I said, Hypo ushered it in. Sam, he took that and he rode and led us up even higher. I mean, that's probably your other option. I mean, Jason White is a solid conversation piece. He would play the national championship, right? We've had 3 quarterbacks play in title games. So, in the 21st century. So there's multiple options that could be there. Baker is definitely one I would not argue against. Love to hear from you all in the comments on who you would pick. That's the problem why you can't do that at Oklahoma like you can at others. I mean, Baker just added to the lore of Oklahoma history. Kyler was probably considered one of the most dynamic players to ever play at Oklahoma, so Kyler is a consideration. You getting back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners, as well as even getting the number 2 in the voting with Jalen Hurts as a transfer. Granted, those 3 were all transfers. I would say you would probably want to look at you would look at transfers similar to Colorado, but game changers, the ones that but you can go back to some of the others. You can go back to Owens. You can go back to Holloway. You've got Leroy Selman. You could do that easily for Oklahoma, and that's honestly where you have the difference in why Oklahoma can't do it, but Colorado can.
All right, so here's my final answer for the 21st century. Rocky Kalmus.
Okay.
Part of the 2000 national championship team, a 2-time consensus All-American, Big 12 Defensive Player of the Year in 2000, 2-time first-team All-Big 12, second-team All-Big 12 in 1999, won the Butkus, won the Jack Lambert. So if you want to look at somebody with similar accolades to a Travis Hunter after their career is over, Rocky Kalmus definitely would have a big time say in that. But again, just too many. There's just way too many numbers to consider. And maybe that's a debate for later. We just go decade by decade and be like, here's the guy. This is the guy. That's the dude. Because there's just so many great players. We didn't even talk about Brian Bosworth. My goodness.
Nope.
So y'all going to kill us for not mentioning certain players, and we get it.
Billy Sims,
please let us know who's in your Oklahoma Sooners Ring of Honor. We'd love to hear that in the comment sections. Let us know.
Mount Rushmore. Give us your Mount Rushmore. Just give us your 4.
Give us your 4. Simple. If you want to go pre-1999, you want to go post-1999, 2 very different eras of Oklahoma football, but a lot of great players at the Blue Blood program that is the Oklahoma Sooners. And again, one of the greatest football programs of all time. Thanks again so much for joining us here on Locked On Sooners. Subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Follow Jay at Unfair Sports. Go check out his channel, Unfair Sports, over on YouTube. You can subscribe also to Locked On Sooners over on YouTube as well. Hit that button, smash that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. You can follow me at John9Williams and read my work covering the Sooners over at SoonersWire.com. The show is at Locked On Sooners on all of your favorite social media platforms. And until next time, he's Jay Smith. I'm John Williams. Catch you then. Boomer.
Sooner. The list is just too long, guys. Let's just be realistic. Too many greats.
Yeah.
Too many greats. It's great being great.